Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the absolute wild ride that is the hero's journey of Cristiano Ronaldo. We're going to really unpack his extreme discipline, his flat-out refusal to accept failure, and that staggering evolution from a skinny kid on a tiny island into this literal global sporting icon. Because, this isn't just your standard story about natural athletic talent. It's practically a blueprint of sheer willpower. So get comfortable, because the details of how he completely transformed himself are just fascinating.
So let's jump right in. Picture this. How do you even bridge the gap between a 15-year-old kid lying in a hospital bed facing a life-threatening medical diagnosis and a billionaire who would go on to rewrite the history books of the world's most popular sport? It's almost impossible to reconcile the global brand we know today with the harsh reality of his youth. The secret? It all comes down to a deeply engineered mindset.
To really get him, we've got to look at this crazy timeline of his rapid, turbulent youth. At just 12 years old, he leaves his impoverished family in Madeira for the Sporting CP Academy in Lisbon. And it was rough. He was severely homesick, crying almost every single night, and constantly mocked by the other boys for his thick island accent. But for him, quitting meant going back to poverty, right? Then, by 15, he undergoes immediate laser heart surgery, a moment that literally could have ended everything. Yet flash forward just 3 years, at 18, he's making a breathtaking £12.5 million debut from Manchester United against Bolton, just dazzling everyone with his skipping dribbles and absolute fearlessness.
Just look at this stark contrast of this journey. Imagine growing up genuinely poor in a tiny, tin-roofed house in Funchal, crammed into a shared room with your siblings. His mom was working herself to the bone as a cook and cleaner, just to stretch their money for food. Now contrast that incredibly humble start with his 2009 unveiling at Real Madrid. 80,000 screaming fans crammed into the Santiago Bernabeu stadium just to watch him walk onto a lime green carpet. The distance between those two realities was paved with this relentless, engineered invincibility. Okay, let's talk about that medical hurdle at 15. Doctors discovered he had tachycardia. Now for a kid whose entire life depended on sprinting and pushing his physical limits, this was terrifying. Basically, his resting heart beat dangerously fast, and it required an immediate laser procedure with absolutely no guarantees of success. But get this, just days after the surgery, with fresh stitches, he's back out there in training. That frightening diagnosis didn't slow him down at all. It was a catalyst. He started training like a boy who'd been given a literal second chance at life.
But that relentless drive was also forged in some really deep emotional pain. Back in 2005, when Ronaldo was only 20 and just starting to find his footing on the world stage, his father, Dinas, passed away from complications related to alcoholism. Ronaldo actually once admitted that his dad never truly got to see him become the global superstar he was destined to be. This profound loss forged an absolute refusal in him to ever lose control. It's the exact reason behind his strict, lifelong no-alcohol policy. He saw firsthand how losing control can completely destroy potential, and he just resolved to exert total, obsessive control over his own body and mind.
Which brings us to how he actually built this machine. At Manchester United, under the fatherly guidance of Sir Alex Ferguson, he was infamous for staying after sessions, just practicing step-overs until the sun went down. He would literally tie weights to his ankles and practice dribbling in the pitch dark to improve his sensory awareness and foot speed. Like, that's not a myth. His teammates actually documented it. And it paid off. By the 2007 to 2008 season, that skinny, flashy kid with the bleached tips had totally transformed his physical frame. He erupted into this unstoppable force, scoring 42 goals in a single season and winning his very first Ballon d'Or.
And Ronaldo himself perfectly summed up the emotional roller coaster of that incredible 2008 season's climax, the Champions League final against Chelsea in Moscow. He opened the scoring with this brilliant header, but later, when it went to a penalty shootout, his shot was saved by Petr Cech. Happy, sad, happy is exactly how he described it, because Manchester United ultimately ended up winning the shootout 6-5. That match proved for sure that he could deliver on the biggest stages, but it also showed the immense emotional stakes he was playing with every single time he stepped onto the pitch.
£80 million. Just let that staggering number sit for a second. That was the world record transfer fee that marked his massive transition to Real Madrid in the summer of 2009. It was a huge statement of intent that completely shifted the landscape of world football. Madrid didn't spend that kind of money just to compete. They spent it to absolutely dominate. And man, Ronaldo understood the assignment. He arrived in Spain ready to push himself way beyond human limits to justify that price tag and cement his legacy.
To pull that off, he had to optimize literally every single variable. He didn't just train hard, he completely restructured how he lived. We're talking eating 6 strictly controlled meals a day to fuel his metabolism, breaking his sleep into 5 90-minute cycles instead of one normal block of rest for optimal recovery, using extreme cryotherapy and timed ice baths. Why go to all this trouble? Because at Real Madrid, he entered the greatest rivalry era football has ever seen, going head-to-head with Lionel Messi. Every single advantage mattered when perfection was just the minimum requirement. 450. Wow. I mean, let the sheer impossible scale of that number sink in. In just 438 games for Real Madrid, he scored 450 goals. He averaged more than a goal a game over a 9-year period at the absolute highest level of European football. He became so much more direct, more clinical. He was scoring these gravity-defying headers and explosive long-range shots, just shattering club and Champions League records left and right.
But you know, all eras eventually come to an end. In this highly emotional open letter to the fans when he left the Spanish Giants in 2018, he wrote that the club had conquered his heart. He left after conquering literally everything, including winning an astonishing 4 Champions League titles in just 5 years, 3 of them back-to-back. True to his nature, he realized he needed a new cycle, a new challenge. He secured his legacy in Spain and immediately looked for the very next mountain to climb. And this unrelenting drive also totally shifted how he led on the international stage. Critics always love to say he needed a major trophy with Portugal to be considered truly great. Well, in the Euro 2016 final against France, tragedy struck. He was forced off the pitch in tears after just 25 minutes due to a knee injury. But he didn't just disappear into the locker room to sulk. No way. With a bandaged knee, he paced the touchline in a tracksuit, right next to his coach, frantically shouting instructions and hyping up his teammates. His sheer will helped push Portugal to a victory, proving he could lead and win even when his own body failed him.
And here's the thing. Even as he aged, he simply refused to accept the end of his story. At 33, when most players are quietly declining, he moves to Juventus and is literally the first to arrive and last to leave training, outworking guys a decade younger than him. In 2021, he makes this massive, frenzy-inducing return to Manchester United. And then, when heavy public criticism mounted as football systems kept evolving, he still didn't fade away. In 2023, he shocked the entire world by signing a £173 million a year deal with Al Nassr. He effectively remodeled the whole global football economy, drawing a massive wave of elite talent over to Saudi Arabia. He's constantly reframing the narrative.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I leave you with this to consider. Was it just raw natural talent that took a boy from a tin-roofed house in Madeira to the absolute pinnacle of global fame? Or was it something much deeper? The relentless discipline, the refusal to be ordinary, the emotional pain channeled into power? We'll leave you to ponder what sheer obsession can really achieve. Ultimately, maybe the real story isn't the goals or all the trophies. Maybe it's simply a 15-year-old surgically repaired heartbeat that absolutely refused to slow down. Thanks so much for joining me, and keep exploring the incredible stories behind the stats.